describe the debris?
Yeah, I noticed in 2 of the ambulances there was some debris that was probably 2.5 to 3 feet, long and probably high, that was propped up on the side of the ambulance there. They were kind of in the shape of maybe like a half a canoe. They were like the front part of a canoe. And, it looked like it might be aluminum, but it looked more like the metal looked more like stainless steel that had been heated. It was blue, kind of a bluish tint to it. Now, what was odd about it, it looked like around the curved part in the front of the canoe, there was some designs or something. It kind of reminded me of maybe some Egyptian signs or whatever. And it was probably about 3 inches in high, and probably the length of what the wreckage I saw, it looked like it was the length. And the same thing was in the other ambulance too. I mean, I saw practically the same thing. The pieces that were practically the same size, and the insignias looked like whatever that might be was part of the wreckage.
How did your friend feel about what she saw?
Well, I didn't know really until the next day. And I called out. I kept trying to get a hold of her because naturally I was curious and I wanted to know what was going on. And so I called out the next day, and then probably around 11:30, she said, "I know you've been trying to get a hold of me, but I haven't been available." And she said, "Why don't you meet me at the officers club? If you have time, meet at the officers club, and we'll have lunch. And I want to talk to you." And the funeral home we had at that time, we had some of the businesses there had an associate membership to the officers club, and our funeral home had that membership, and also had a card to identify myself and what business that I was, associated with. So I had no problem. One time I'd go to base, all I had to do, a lot of times if it was in the evening, I'd have to stop and sign a visitor's and get a visitor's pass and then turn it in when I left. But it was no problem going out there. So I went on out and met her. Beg your pardon? Well, we, both ordered. I'm not sure, remember what we ordered, but it was just a light lunch. But she was so upset. She looked like she was, in shock, is what she really talked like and looked like. And she said, I said, "Well, I was just curious. The only reason I want to talk to you was curious on what happened." And she said, "Well, you won't believe it." And she says, "I don't believe it either." But she said, "I got in a lot of trouble on this thing. I'm not real sure about this." But she said, then she pulled out of a little purse or little pocketbook, whatever she had there. She gave me a little diagram that she had drawn some figures of some arms and face and so on. She told me that this is what was in those, that it was a crash. It wasn't an airplane, but they didn't know what it was at that time. Yeah, but she said we have 3 bodies. There was 3 bodies. She said 2 of them were very mutilated. One looked like it might have walked out, or that it, might have lived a little while. And she explained they were like 3.5 feet to 4 feet tall. The 2 of the bodies were you couldn't identify much because they were practically destroyed, and it looked like maybe that they might have been a predatory animal or something might have been doing some damage on the bodies too.
How'd she explain the head?
Well, she said the head, and in the little drawings that I had, the way she explained it and the way she drew it, that the heads were somewhat larger than a human heads. The hands were long, no thumbs. They were just the long, very delicate fingers at the end of them. On the underside, at the tip of each finger was a pad-like, maybe a little pad, but it looked like the skin had maybe a little suction, like the little suction cups on those. On no fingernails on the hands. The head, the lips were very just a long, narrow, more or less, not full lips like we would have in most of our people, but very fine line, very fine lips. There was no teeth. That was the inside of the mouth. It was kind of like a real the gums. Maybe it was. She said to explain it. It was almost as hard as if it was rawhide. Maybe at that. The ears. There was only two small orifices on each side of the head, with looked like a couple of small lobes that might. Some way that might cover both of those, but there was not a protruding ear. And also that the nose, there was only two small orifices on the nose. There was really no nose that was convex. It was all just flush with the face.
Was she emotional?
Very much so. Very emotional. She would have to stop and drink water every once in a while, and also she never touched a meal all the time we were talking. In an hour and a half that we were there, she never touched a meal.
Any other demonstrations of communications emotions?
Well, just, every once in a while she'd go like this, and then wringing her hands, and she said it was the most I've never been so horrified in my life. I've never seen anything so gruesome in my life. I've never smelt anything that smelt worse in my life. And she told me that when I saw her, she was leaving the room to go to the bathroom because she was deathly ill and was going to throw up.
Did she recognize any of the doctors?
She told me, she said, I asked her that question, which of the doctors, and she said, I don't know that I knew them, and that was her answer. So, but she said she walked in the room, and they said, hey, we need you need to help us. And that was the way she became involved in it. And then she got ill. The doctors also became very ill. They would have to do a little examination, and they'd have to leave and go sit down, and then they would come back and do a little bit more. It was that bad.